such a happy day when I talk about these things. Bulimia is the next one. So who can describe something about bulimia?
After you eat, you throw up.
Ah, there we go. After you eat, you throw up. So we've got that binge purge cycle. Who else can tell me something about bulimia?
Some develop health problems from throwing up by using certain chemicals.
Yeah, what kind of health problems?
Heart problems, liver problems.
Liver's the big one, and throat problems, and enamel on your teeth. Do you know that dentists are often the first ones to diagnose bulimia in people because when you throw up, you have a lot of stomach gas in your mouth. It eats through the enamel on your teeth, and dentists will notice this because your teeth start to decay. You also have esophageal problems from all the acid coming up your esophagus. So there are all sorts of things, and your liver, you end up with liver toxicity. It's really, really bad. What else can happen? Pain. Bulimics will experience high levels of pain for a variety of different reasons, typically because their electrolytes are out of balance. If you're constantly going through a binge purge cycle, your electrolytes can get thrown out. What else goes along with bulimia?
But you get doesn't your esophagus start to swell too?
It does. And you can have all sorts of reddening in the face, the neck, and the cheek area, and swollen glands. It'll look very glandular and very swollen. And I have one in the back. Yeah.
You exercise a lot?
There. Okay. The last one. So one of the things that we know about binging and purging is that purging can take three forms: overexercise, vomiting, and laxatives, or water pills. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, so you're going through these binges and purges, and we're going to talk about the binging in a minute. So these people must be pretty skinny, right? How many think that they're skinny? How many think that they're overweight? How many think that they're average weight? Good. They're actually most likely average, and we're going to kind of go over here for just a minute. When you talk about any characteristic, we talk about the normal curve, and it's this bell-shaped curve where most of us fall in the average category. And it can be about anything. It can be about the amount of nose hair that you have in your nose, the amount of earwax you have in your ear, how big your feet are, how tall you are, what your weight is. We all fall along this kind of curve. And most of us fall in the average category. Most of us have average amount of earwax, nose hair, we're average height, average weight, average shoe size, average hair color, etc., etc. But you have things on both sides. So you have people that have really large feet, so they're above average, and people with really small feet, so they're below average. You have people that are overweight, and so they're above average on weight, and below average on weight on the below side. Now, for anorexia, the thing to keep in mind, to back up, anorexics are 15% below average. That gives you an idea as to how skinny they are. Now, bulimics don't have that qualifier as a diagnostic tool. Bulimics typically fall on the average side to the above average side. Here's why. Typical binges are high-calorie, high-carbohydrate, bad-for-you foods. So imagine eating a loaf of bread followed by a bag of potato chips and a pizza. Okay? So imagine that that combination is 4,000 calories. It might actually be more. Now say that I vomit. Let's look at the caloric piece. It took me a while to go through a loaf of bread, a bag of chips, and the pizza. I am not going to be able to expel all of the food I just ate because part of it's going to get digested. Now, if I use a laxative, it actually has to go through my system before it goes out. So I'm actually going to absorb a high number of those calories before it goes out the other end. And if I'm exercising, we've already established 600 calories an hour is average times 4 hours of exercise, so we're at 2,400 calories. But if I've eaten 4,000 calories, I still have 1,600 calories in my system. And my binge is typically on top of my normal daily intake of food. So I might have taken in another 1,000 or 1,500 calories on top of the 1,600. So now we're at 3,100 calories for the day. So now I'm gaining weight as opposed to losing weight. Or I'm staying in average size, dependent upon how I monitor my binges, and how frequent my binges are, and how frequent my purges are. So your bulimics are not necessarily and are not often super skinny. And that's one of the ways that you can differentiate when you're looking at someone between an anorexic and a bulimic. But bulimics hide their bulimia. They are very, very good at hiding it. Because one of the things, I mean, who wants to throw up in front of their friends? Unless you're doing it with a cramp. You probably don't want to do that. So it's something that you hide, and it's often very embarrassing. Because what we know is that the binging is emotionally driven, and the purging is self-punishing. This is how we're going to differentiate it from binge eating disorder. Now this is the new one. Binge eating disorder, all you do is binge. You don't purge. The problem is that the binging is emotionally driven. You binge, there's your emotional drive, without a purge at all. What do you think is the most common other mental health diagnosis that goes along with binge eating disorder? Yeah.
Depression.
Depression. Yeah. Most people are unhappy, sad. Here we go. I'm just really, it's not doing well. They're unhappy, they're sad, and they're eating out of emotional response. Now, how many of you think that if you have binge eating disorder that you're going to be skinny? Probably unlikely. How many think that you're going to be average weight? You could be. You could definitely be average weight. How many think that you're going to be above average weight? Possibilities. Good. It's a high number. Now, keep in mind, individuals who have obesity do not necessarily have binge eating disorder. So you can have one without the other, just like you can have binge eating disorder without having obesity. It depends on how frequently you binge and how much you're binging on. If I only binge once a month and it's on a loaf of bread, I can probably work it off for the rest of the month, not in terms of purging activity, just by daily living. And so I might actually just be on this side of average. But if I'm binging every day, I'm probably more likely to be overweight. Now, keeping all these things in mind, I'm going to have you get back in your groups. What I want you to do is those two columns that you created, I want you to take each of the eating disorders and put it in the column that you think it best fits in without rearranging the original columns.